That's right.
Perfect segue into the next question, which basically is, and let me just ask it and then put in another question underneath that. But what is the most common thing overlooked in implementing an effective content strategy? And the little sub question, the important thing here is implementing, because we can create. We can create a strategy once we look at data and understand, you know, they're slacking off here, maybe they're not looking at this signal, and, you know, again, it's always going to depend on the marketing and the campaign, so on and so forth. But what I'm looking for is those implementations that we overlook. Can you name 1, 2, 3?
Well, I think that people don't understand, and again, maybe not so much people that are in this call, in this room, but my experience with clients, large and small, is that, you know, they think the content is easy. You know, oh, we can write that stuff. Yeah, no problem. Well, you know what? You're wrong. And content marketing is the differentiator. Content marketing that serves clients and prospects is absolutely positively, and by the way, that content can be video content, it can be photographs, it can be, you know, blogs, it can be white papers, it can be webinars. They're all different pieces to the content marketing piece, so it's not just writing. But I think that people think that it's easy. And you know, I remember a couple of years ago at Ann Handley's Marketing Profs Conference, I was sitting in a room and we were talking about content, and I pissed Joe Paluzzi off of the Content Marketing Institute because I said, you know what, writing great content is the easy part. And he was just like, what are you talking about? It's not easy to write great content. And I said, you know what, I'm a writer, and I love writers, and some of my best friends are writers, but writing great stuff is the easy part. Getting anybody to read it is where it takes talent, and that's where the people like you, Gabriella, and you, Doc, I mean, who have invested years and years in building networks and supporting other people and sharing their content and reading blogs and commenting on blogs and having Google Hangouts where we bring people who are part of our network in and expose them to other people in our network. But that's how that, you know, you can't just create content without a plan for distribution. You know, that's like creating a TV spot that's a great TV spot that you spend $1 million on, that's wonderful, and if people could see it, it would make them buy it, but you don't air it anywhere. You know, you don't know how to make a media buy. And so I think that people think that content is easy to do and that it's free because we can do it ourselves, and that once they put it out there, then magic is going to happen. And so I think that that's a big misstep, and I think that, you know, the power of distribution is what's really important.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people still adhere to the old build it and they will come philosophy, and I'm sorry. They will not. It can be the most awesome stuff out there.
Well,
they will not come.
Yeah, and even less so today, Doc, because of all that noise. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just, we're just so, you know, we're so fractured. We're so, there's so many things competing for attention. And what we tend to do is we tend to find our trusted resources. Oh, Gabby wrote about this. Oh, Doc wrote about this. You know, I don't have to look any further because I trust them. They are on this trend. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to vet you. I know your level of ability when it comes to this. And so I think that that's really a misstep that people make, is thinking, you know, I do think that content in many iterations is the big differentiator. And I think that we have conversations like this, and a lot of times people in our space get so arrogant because they say, you know, people are just so stupid. I don't know why everybody isn't doing this. And I don't know why everybody isn't, you know, writing great content, and why everybody isn't doing social and whatever. And the reality of it is, I believe that we are in the infancy stages of what content marketing it truly is, how to execute great development of great content, how to execute on the distribution of great content, how to tie all of that to our business objectives, how to use it for lead gen, how to use it for marketing automation, how to use it for social engagement, how to use it for fun, how to use it in our email campaigns. I think there are some companies out there, and a number of them, that are doing a fabulous job. And then there are thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands who have no idea, and we're just such in the infancy of this as an industry in general and as a component to integrated marketing strategies in general.
Good point. Well, that kind of leads into the next question too. Is I know you do a lot of writing, and I personally feel that there is a difference in writing for a column for the New York Times or for Forbes, or writing for a website or a blog. Interested in hearing your take on that. Do you believe that there is a significant difference in style, and if so, what do you call those differences? Where do you see them?
Well, I think there's huge differences, and I actually teach about this all the time. And one of the things, I kind of have a checklist that I take people through, and one of the things that I say is, you have to write like people talk, and pull the corn cob out of your butt, and which always makes people laugh. But when you create content, if you're writing something for the New York Times, that's one level of writing. And when you create blog content, and I have many good friends who are great bloggers, but I start reading some of their posts and I'm like asleep halfway through because I don't have that time commitment to give you. So I think that being warm and human and down to earth and approachable is really important in blog content, no matter what you're writing. I don't care if you're writing for a huge company, I don't care if you're writing for your own blog. It just doesn't matter. And writing headlines that make sense, and not necessarily keyword rich headlines, but you have to I cite some data from Copyblogger all the time. 8 in 10 people will see your headline, and 2 in 10 will click through. So if there's nothing more important than that headline. And so many times bloggers, try to be cute and write stupid, vague headlines or something that they, that they then sell 3 paragraphs in the post. And we have become a society that is masterful at filtering and scanning. And if you happen to be one of the 2 in 10 that clicks on a link, and maybe it's because it's by somebody and you're curious about what he's writing about, but if that writer dances around what it is he's delivering and doesn't get to it until the 3rd paragraph or the 4th paragraph, chances are good that I'm gone. And so understanding the importance of a headline, understanding the importance of selling it in your first paragraph, understanding the importance of writing a meta description that's compelling, those are things that I think that are extremely important. And again, why, a lot of my clients are very big companies that have huge teams of writers that write content for magazines that they produce, that write content for advertising materials that they produce. But those same writers don't write the corporate blog content because it takes a certain kind of skill to write for the web, and not every writer can do that. Unfortunately, a lot of writers don't know that they can't do that.
Right. Which is a great segue, and this is very true, because I know that you work with teams of writers. Sometimes you'll work with 3, 4 writers, sometimes more, or sometimes you'll do it yourself. But when you're working with a team of writers, because I know we go through this sometimes, what are some things that you can say or you can inspire in your team in order to make the content really stand out? Like when you have the brainstorming after you get the contract, I'm sure you do this. Most people that work in marketing, you get the whole team together, you brainstorm, and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing, this is the message. But what about for the writers? Because most writers, sometimes it's arduous. They have to sit down, they have to write about stuff that they have to research, and it's not exciting. And so
let me tell you, honey, I write B2B content. I write about PowerPoint.
Right? So yeah. So what are
airport terminals. I think the thing of it is, I feel like this, and again, I am, um, I'm a marketer, and my job is to serve the interests of my clients. My job is to help them, really, my job is to help them leverage the web to grow their businesses. And that involves what we do with regard to content. But, back in the day when I was doing, direct mail marketing campaigns or whatever, my job was also to serve the needs of my clients. And part of my job has always been helping figure out what that brand voice is. What's the personality of the brand? What's the essence of the brand? How are we going to come across in our messaging? How are we going to tell our stories? How are we going to tell our clients' stories? How are we going to tell stories that serve our clients? How are we going to tell our stories in a way that the stories aren't about us, but they're about, things that our prospects are thinking about? And you know what, Gabby? Not every writer thinks like that. Not every writer can get that. And, so when we have conversations, especially because so much of what we do is so, and really, none of the content that we write, certainly in the B2B space, is scintillating. But you know what? I know so much about so many amazing things. I know, the importance of the infrastructure in the United States, and that ours really sucks, and what businesses across the nation are doing, and really globally are doing to deal with infrastructure problems. And by the way, that's great dinner table conversation.
right.
And, I know so much about, I have another client that works in the promotional products industry, and it's a nonprofit, and that works with huge brands to certify their production processes so that the promotional products that they buy, they have a relative certainty that they won't be. And you read about fires in Bangladesh, and you see Gap products or on the floor of a fire factory in Bangladesh that because and a bunch of people died. Well, there are a lot of brands that don't want that to happen, so they want to work with vendors who have processes in place that can be certified. So, which is really snoozeworthy if I can't even explain it more succinctly than that. But my point is, whoever it is that you're working with as a client, actually caring about what it is they do. And maybe they're a plumbing manufacturer, or maybe they're a lawyer that specializes in, a certain kind of injury cases or whatever. I mean, you have to be able to understand their business. Your writers have to be able to understand their business, and they have to be able to tell a story in a way. They have to be able to tell the story in a way that they're always thinking about, how does this benefit the customer? Going back to the young woman who's the food writer,
Right.
All of her efforts were focused on writing recipes, which are a commodity.
Sure.
Instead, she knows so much about treating Lyme disease, which she has, by clean eating.
Right.
And the impacts of gluten-free eating on disease and that sort of thing. So I think that getting people to understand that writing assignments, are beyond just telling the story of how great we are, but telling stories in ways that resonate with customers and prospects, and showing how you can, informing them, showing them a path to solving their problems, and that sort of thing. I think that's...
Yeah, no, I totally agree. One of the things that I noticed that has helped with really dry topics, topics that we're not really excited to write about, is to have your writers go and take a look at either the competitor of that particular client, or take a look at what the client has done in the past, because guess what? You're not going to have the answer to everything. But if you can see who the readers are, who their niche is, maybe you don't like the topic, but the people you're writing to do, and they will pay attention. And that's one of the things I tell writers, especially when they're getting into a niche that they're really not familiar with. They're great writers, but they don't know how to bring that excitement to the page. So take a look, immerse yourself for a couple of hours. before you even put pen to paper, to really understand who those people are. So,
well, and I think that, Gabriella, one of the things that we do, when we start, before we ever even start the content ideation process, from a strategic standpoint, we do a really thorough competitive analysis. And so we look at, who the other players in this space are and how, and we ask ourselves, we look at, who's doing a great job, where, like going back to the food bloggers and, looking at this one's doing great, this one's doing okay, here's what they're all missing, so that competitive analysis piece helps drive a lot of our strategy and a lot of content ideation. And, a lot of times we find that the people that we feel are winning are the people that are being human, the people who are putting themselves out there. You read a blog post and it's funny, I had somebody call me, if anybody on the screen, you can't raise your hand, but Stu Leonard's is a grocery store chain in Connecticut. And I grew up in New York, and I have actually a brother that lives in Danbury, Connecticut, and I've shopped at Stu Leonard's before. And it's just a great grocery store with a great story, and it's a family-owned chain. And last Monday, my phone rang, and I said, B3, this is Shelly. And this woman said, oh, Shelly Kramer? And I said, oh, yeah. And she said, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was going to get you. And, and it was so funny. She was so taken aback that I answered my phone. And she said, well, this is Beth Leonard from Stu Leonard's, and I don't really know why I called you, except that I've been reading your blog for a long time, and I absolutely love how you share experiences. And like that one post you wrote about the time that you went to the deli counter and you got the worst customer service ever, and you were so annoyed. And she said, you know what, my dad is 89 years old, and he's not as involved in the day-to-day running of our company anymore. And he's spends most of his time on the island that the I can't remember, in the Caribbean somewhere, a home that he has. But she said, when I read that blog post, I sent it to him, and he wrote back and he said, yeah, I really like that girl. I like how she talks about customer service. But my point is this. All I did in that blog post was wrote about a time when I went to my local grocery store where I spend at least $200 every week, and how it amazes me that they have such crappy customer service at the deli counter. And they were reading that message, Beth was reading that message going, oh my God, I totally like this, I totally get it. And guess, so now we're talking about what kind of work can we do together, because you like me because of what, because I let you in to my brain. And I let you into how I think about how important customer service is every single day when you're a grocery store owner. And so, and what Beth doesn't know is that she thought I was kind of a big deal, and she was surprised that I answered the phone when she called me. But she made my year, just by calling me, and being so complimentary and telling me how the content that I wrote impacted her, and how everything that I think about customer service is completely in line with how they feel and how they try to run their businesses.
Right.
So putting that human touch into your content is how you make friends and win customers.
Absolutely. You got to let your personality come through. Well, we're coming up on, in fact, we're just a hair over the hour, so we really ought to wrap this up. Before we do that, any of the folks that were kind enough to join us in the room here have a particular question they'd like to share with Shelly?
Is anybody still awake?
I'm sure nobody is dozing.
Here, well, they could be. See, look. They could be asleep. You don't know. Yay!
Stefania has a question. Go ahead, Stefania.
And Andriana is still there too. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to put your voice, Stefania, or do you want to type it in? Oh no, you're awake. But I do have a question. Good. Go ahead.
No, she doesn't have any questions.
She does not have a
question.
question.
I don't have a question. Everything's very clear. Va bene. Love Bennett. Okay,
Well,
Doc, you want to take it away?
I certainly want to thank everybody for joining us, and my heartfelt thanks out to Shelly for sharing some real wisdom. Uh, you know, certainly nothing there that I would disagree with, and undoubtedly a number of things that you said that were very handy reminders of things that I've heard. And unfortunately, sometimes you get too focused on one thing and you start forgetting about others. And as an SEO, I'm also a writer and a content strategist, but as an SEO, I tend to sometimes put on that hat and forget the content strategy hat, forget the branding hat. I need to get more points on my head so I can wear more hats at once, I guess, and keep that mindset.
Yeah. Don't we all?
But really appreciate your time, and very much enjoyed it, and I hope it's not the last time that you join us.
Well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. You guys have been awesome, and I apologize to all of you for all of our technical difficulties at the beginning, and appreciate so much you guys hanging in with us.